Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving deep into a story that's shaking up the diplomatic scene and stirring up some serious heat between South Africa and the United States. Grab your popcorn, because this one is loaded with politics, pride, and a dash of defiance, all wrapped up in the ongoing saga around South Africa's Black Economic Empowerment Policy, the so-called BEE. If you've been following international relations lately, you'll know tensions have been rising. The United States government has moved to put South Africa under the microscope, with US lawmakers pushing a bill to review relations between the two countries. But that's not all. The Trump administration, yes, the Trump administration, is imposing a hefty 30% tariff hike on South African exports to the US starting August 8. This means everything we send to America just got more expensive, and that spells trouble for our economy. Now, let's rewind a bit. Why the tariffs? The US seems unhappy with some of South Africa's policies, especially the ANC's cornerstone strategy to correct economic imbalances from apartheid, the Black Economic Empowerment Program. The US is pushing for changes, demanding South Africa drop or water down BEE policies. But the ANC isn't having any of it. At the forefront of this fight back is the ANC Secretary-General, Fikile Mbalula. Speaking from Johannesburg, he didn't mince his words. When asked about the possibility of US sanctions targeting ANC leaders, Mbalula was unapologetic, almost daring Washington to try. He made it clear that the ANC will not bow down to foreign pressure or abandon its principles, no matter the cost. He pointed out something important: South Africa is a democracy built on liberation and transformation. The BEE policy is about more than just numbers or quotas, it's a continued march toward justice and equity in a country still grappling with deep inequalities. To Mbalula and many ANC members, this is non-negotiable. Let them bring sanctions on us if they want, Mbalula said. This is not just bravado. It's a message loaded with history and pride. The ANC reminds us that during apartheid, the US government itself once branded them a terrorist organization. Their then president, Oliver Tambo, even had to travel to the US to explain that they were fighting for freedom, not terrorism. So the wounds run deep, and the mistrust lingers. What makes this even more interesting is Mbalula's frustration with the current US ambassador to South Africa. This envoy, Mbalula claims, once supported the resolution labeling the ANC as terrorists. Now, that same person shows videos to South African leaders, suggesting the nation should face penalties based on those old perceptions. Imagine being judged by decades-old propaganda while your country is trying to move forward. On the economic front, the tariffs are a real threat. South Africa relies heavily on exports to the US. A 30% hike means South African goods become less competitive in the US market, hurting businesses and jobs back home. But Mbalula insists the ANC will not cave in and dismantle its policies just to please an external power. The party's position is firm: transformation is essential and non-negotiable. He contrasted the ANC's approach with that of the Democratic Alliance, DA, South Africa's main opposition party. According to Mbalula, the DA is more willing to align with US preferences, even if that means abandoning affirmative action policies. The ANC sees this as a fight for identity, not just economics. This standoff highlights a larger question: how far should South Africa bend to international pressure when it comes to shaping its own economic policies? Is there a limit to sovereignty when it comes to trade and diplomacy? The US, a global powerhouse, is flexing its muscles through tariffs and legislation, signaling displeasure with South Africa's path. And let's not forget the social aspect. Mbalula insisted there is no genocide happening in South Africa, pushing back against certain foreign narratives that have painted the country in a negative light. South Africa's constitution protects all citizens, regardless of race, and the country is striving to build a more equal society through continued transformation. The US claims, however, suggest otherwise, feeding tensions between the two nations. This situation isn't just about trade, it's about respect and recognition. South Africa wants the world to acknowledge the progress it has made and the unique challenges it faces. The US's approach, from South Africa's perspective, seems heavy-handed and dismissive. To add a bit of local flavor, imagine Mbalula at the briefing, standing firm like a braai master guarding his grill. The US might think they can turn down the heat with tariffs, but the ANC is stoking the fire for transformation. They're not about to let outside forces dictate their recipe for change. For South Africans watching this unfold, it's a moment of mixed feelings. On one hand, economic strain from tariffs could hurt the average citizen. On the other, the country's leaders are drawing a line in the sand, refusing to compromise on policies meant to right historic wrongs. What's next? The coming months will be crucial. Will the US government escalate sanctions? Will South Africa seek new trading partners to soften the blow? Could this tension push the ANC to double down on its policies or even shift them in some way? Only time will tell. Meanwhile, the global audience watches a classic clash between economic power and political sovereignty. It's a reminder that the struggle for equality inside a nation can sometimes become entangled in international politics and power plays. Before we wrap up, let's consider the irony here. The ANC once faced condemnation and isolation during apartheid. Now, even as it leads a democratic South Africa, it still encounters resistance from the global stage when trying to implement transformation. History might be repeating itself, but the context has shifted. The fight is no longer just against apartheid but for economic justice within a democratic framework. So what can viewers do? If you found this analysis insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth political news and commentary. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think South Africa should stand firm on BE despite the economic risks? Or should it find a middle ground with the US? We want to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.